Perez Collision Center is a proud sponsor of Proview Networks and Albuquerque Boxing. Perez Collision Center offers expert knowledge on any of your auto body and paint needs. Give them a call today, 505-254-4655, or stop by for a visit at 2415 2nd Street Northwest in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Perez Collision Center.
Hey, welcome to the Steve Davis Show. Special guest today is Dan Salzwedel, former executive director of the MMA. And Dan, well, first of all, thanks for coming on.
Oh, it's my honor, believe me, always.
Well, you know, you're the 2015, you're in the Hall of Fame for the MMA, and awards just keep coming your way. And so what we're doing today is talking about being the New Mexico Officials Association Hall of Famer. I mean, you're just a Hall of Famer.
Oh, I'm a very fortunate and blessed person. Anybody appreciates being validated at one point in time in their lives, and the Official Association was an important part of the construct, at least, is when I was there. So it'll always be important to me because it's part of that trinity for learning.
You know, and that kind of caught me off guard when, you know, our friend Tom Dragmaster kind of told me about this, and I'm like, well, when did he, with all your, I mean, 25 years at the MMA and 18 years as the executive director, when did you have time to ref? You look very young still.
Yeah, well, embalming fluid does wonders for us old people, Coach. I did it a little bit before in Wisconsin, 5 years, and then 4 years here, in a little high school and a little college here, but that was before, when I was a school administrator and so on and so forth in this state. So it's a little bit different. Years ago, when I first started out in Wisconsin, even in college, we officiated while I was coaching in college as well as high school a little bit, just because you did that years ago a little bit to make money, but to stay active in the game. And there were a lot of coaches who perform both roles.
Well, how did you have time? I mean, the Green Bay Packers, I mean, how did you have time to referee with the Green Bay Packers?
Well, the football season was a little bit of a question mark. No question about that.
I mean, I know your mind was about the Sunday afternoon game. It wasn't about officiating all week long. So.
Well, it was always on officiating and coaching as well, even during the Packer game, except they didn't listen to me quite as well, and they didn't allow me to blow the whistle there.
Well, I tell you, I mean, you got some unbelievable stories about Green Bay Packers. You still go back today?
I go back once a year. We go back. I've got friends that have tickets back there, and the corresponding director of the WIAA and I are close friends. We kind of grew up together, and he has tickets. There's an 85,000 waiting list for season tickets, and I'm not likely to live long enough to get tickets up there, even though I was a resident.
Well, and there's a lot of people that don't get in. I mean, forget the tickets, just being able to say that to go to a Green Bay Packer game, it takes...
It's nothing like that experience. It's like a great big high school or college game. It's like a big high school game is what it is.
Well, I tell you, I know that you've had some great experience. You got to talk about the one where you had all the layers of coats, and you kind of lost your wife in the meantime for a little bit.
Yeah, well, that was one time. It was one of the times I took my wife up from here. She, of course, is from Alamogordo originally, and I took her up to see a Packer game, and I kind of like going up when it's a little chillier, because in my view, football ought to be played in the winter and in the snow. But
but there's a difference between a little chilly and frostbite, okay? All right. Let's kind of get the terminology a little bit.
Well, that's home field advantage, Coach. Rodenhouse used to say that, even over in Clovis, he would say that. But when I went over there, we went up there one particular time. It was 38 degrees below zero with a wind chill factor, and you get acclimated, obviously, to the climate you're in, and she was acclimated to a warmer climate, and I took her up. I said, it's going to be a little windy out there, and you got to be careful. So she had 27 of those little warmers stuck all over her body. I'm sure this is what you're referring to.
Right.
Now, you always put a little bit of them in your feet and tootsies, and of course you have layers of clothing just because it does get a bit brisk out there from time to time, particularly when you're just sitting. Well, she had 27 of them on her, and she also had a sleeping bag that she was going to roll into when she got into the seat itself, because those are all hard seats. It's not exactly like they're cushioned theater seats out there. And most times, even when I was a kid, we volunteered to go up and take snow off the seats in November and December and January. Anyway, she had these warmers on her all over her body, and we go through security, and they start zinging her. And I said, gee, well, what's that? Well, it's one of these warmers. And she had them in her breast, and she had them on her legs and her hips and her toes and all over in her face. And she was covered up. She looked like a terrorist from Iraq. And they're going on in, she's got all these all over. She pulled one out by her up on top in her upper part of her body. And she said, I'm not taking any one of these things off. And after complaining a little bit about it, they put her through security, but they shoved her through. And then we get in about halfway through the game, and she had about as much of the atmosphere and fun as she wanted to. And she went to the restroom, and I wondered why she didn't come back. Well, she spent the rest of the game in front of the hand warmers and the blower dryers in the restroom, watching the game from the restroom. She wasn't alone, but that was her experience.
Well, the reason I relate to that story is because we did a game down in Ruidoso, and it was one of those type freezing things, and I had to go to the warmest place in the place was in the bathroom at halftime just to thaw out. So I related. That's why I remember that story, because you don't realize how packed that bathroom was, man. There was everybody at halftime was in there trying to warm up, but it was one of those type of games that you wish maybe you didn't want to be there. You know?
I love that part of it. I don't miss the cold weather up there. I can remember playing in high school in 6-8 inches of snow from time to time, but you get acclimated to it over a period of time, and it doesn't bother you quite like it bothers me now. I'm frankly a sissy when it comes to cold weather anymore now.
Well, you even have a family member now named after back. I got to actually personally meet this legend, you would say.
You mean my dog?
Oh, your dog, yeah. That was
my dog, Lambo. Yeah, it was Lambo Brett.
It was quite I mean, I love dogs, and he just I remember sitting on your couch, and he was right there with me, and I might have been sitting in his couch.
Yeah, don't do that again.
Hey, Dan, we're going to go to the Dream Style Top 10 Plays of the Week and come back and talk more about your Hall of Fame experience with the Officials Association.
Thank you.
Fighting forward with the right hand, a left and then a right, and this one. By Sanchez, a right back on a right hand. They'll exchange it. Combination now for Pitbull. There's. And then out Torres says, let's go. He says, come get me. And the crowd will boo. And now, fighted this, hasn't he? Oh. There's a great combination. And now I think you're seeing this. Here, a minute to go in round one. And then a right hand. You see Ramirez switch. Well, there's a good answer right back. That's a great combination for Griego to end it. Look at the quick combination. Nice left. 2 minutes to go in round 3. Benavides puts Ramirez down. A shot to
Gentlemen, your winner, the Pitbull, Josh Thomas, ladies and gentlemen.
Get into the game with Garden Swartz Team Sales. They have everything you need, from screen printing, embroidery, and digital printing services, high school letterman jackets, and all high school and club uniforms, and individual and team apparel with the most reliable brands like Speedline, Rollins, and Wilson. And don't forget to check out the latest F7 Shut helmet. It's all at Garden Swartz Team Sales. Give them a call, 505-884-1234. Garden Swartz Team Sales.
Well, I'm going to the frontier, walking to the cashier, order up a root beer and a number one. Cover it with green stuff, one scoop is not enough. Find a booth is real tough, back by the Duke. Meet my family, meet my friends in the quirkiest restaurant I have ever been. All of Albuquerque's favorite spot, it's the Frontier Restaurant.
The Frontier Restaurant is a proud supporter of Proview Sports Network. Don't sacrifice quality of flavor when you're in a hurry. Golden Pride offers ribs, fried chicken, green and red chili breakfast burritos, and Frontier Cinnabons. 4 great locations, or visit us online at goldenpride@abq.com. Golden Pride Barbecue Chicken and Ribs, proud supporter of Proview Sports Network.
Hey, welcome back to Steve Davis Show. We have Dan Salzwedel, now the 2019 New Mexico Officials Association Hall of Fame. Just another one of those resumes that adds to your list of many, many awards you've received in your life. But you really appreciate this award. You were talking during just a minute ago, and I'd like you to rephrase that, and that was pretty interesting what you had to say to me.
Well, it is. The officials, of course, are analogous to police or any kind of regulatory agency that reinforces behaviors that we have within our society and our culture. And it's part of the officials are part of that trinity for learning. Officials enforce the rules. Coaches are the ones that instill the values and the rules and the protocol for the game. The administrators are the ones who create them. So it's kind of like a legislative process, and you have to have a judicial part of it. And that's part of the trinity of learning, how I perceive it anyway. And they play a very, very important role educationally. And without them, this would be an empty suit educationally. And we still are the only nation in the world that uniquely and inherently ties interscholastic education, athletics, and activities formally to the educational process. So it's a very, very important part of the educational process, and I kind of during my tenure tried to re-emphasize that and resurrect that as part of it, because it easily gets lost. But they play a very, very important role in whether or not we're going to be successful as a competitive society, a free enterprise society, success-oriented as we are in this world.
Well, I tell you, it's, like I said, you caught me off guard when I heard you won the award, okay, but it didn't, once I looked into it, it was like, why so long? How come you haven't been recognized earlier? But the dynamics of this has really made you very humble about it.
Well, nobody gets to anything like this or any recognition without a lot of other people, including yourself. The bottom line with it is that part of a larger group, and I was fortunate to be there in the right time when it needed to be resurrected and reconstructed as an organization, the NMOA. And I having officiated a little bit as well as principally coaching. And years ago, as we talked off camera about it, coaches used to often officiate off-season and sometimes even during the season. When I was coaching as an assistant in college, I officiated in high school.
You think when you're saying that, we already mentioned Roanhouse, but that's what I mean, as one of the greatest, football legends in the state of New Mexico, that's what he did, and he loved to referee.
Well, he did, and he did a good job of it, really good job of it. But that was kind of common in old school days. You would officiate out of season for when you weren't coaching, and even sometimes when you were.
You made a statement that, this is basically, without officials, we don't have sports. I mean, if you really, in the way that we see it, and it's disturbing to me when I see Dana say that there's not enough officials because of the scrutiny that they get from the fans.
Well, it's bothersome to myself as well, and perplexing to a point. I think from our perspective, we also have to remember that officials play a very important role in the educational process. Make sure that they understand that they make a meaningful contribution. But from people from the outside, whether an official is right or wrong in a call, the value is that learning how to understand how to live in a society absent chaos. There are going to be mistakes. As a player, you and I made mistakes. I'm not sure about you, but I sure did once in a while. As a coach, I made a mistake or two every 20 minutes probably, or a minute. And as officials, you're going to make mistakes. Well, the value of it is whether or not you can be better than that error and go past it. I don't see any bad experiences like fans do. These aren't professional sports. That's an educational activity. It's intended to be fun, and it's a harmless way of learning how to succeed in a competitive society. And you have to learn how to take care of adversity. People are going to wrong you in your life. And whether it's a coach, official, or an administrator, or somebody on the street, that's going to happen. Well, the key is that you have to always remember the value is in how you handle that adversity. Whether or not you can be better than that and go beyond and suck it up and turn your cheek from time to time. Officials, for the most part, make the right calls.
If I'm correct, 89% in high school and like 92% in college and deal because they have a little bit more training. I kind of got those numbers from Dana, and I could be a little bit off on my deal, but 90%, just say 90% of the time, they're correct.
Don't you wish we were 90% right in everything we did? Yeah, that's right. It is right. Those statistics are accurate. And there are a lot of people who do that research now over a period of time. But I would encourage anybody who has an interest in activities or sports, and you don't even have to have a lot of prowess in the game itself, or adjudicating in music or speech or debate. Football, basketball needs people. Those crowds out there sometimes are somewhat maladjusted in terms of how they respond to things in on sportsmanlike way. But the bottom line is that most part, it's called pretty well. And I don't care where you're at, big school, small school, junior high, even whatever.
Well, I know that New Mexico's got, unbelievable standards to be official. I mean, they work at it. I know they have officials meetings on Monday to talk about calls that maybe they might have missed, and where they better themselves or get themselves better in position, communicating with the other refs. I mean, it's a really unique, if you understand refs' mentality of what they do to prepare to do a game.
Indeed they do, and I feel very fortunate to have been a part of the development of that curriculum back in the early 80s, and of course it's matured and morphed into something even better right now. But It's very important to understand. You go to a meeting every night, every once a week, generally Monday or Tuesday of each week. You of course have to subject yourself. You have to work at all levels. The more games you work, obviously, the more affluent you become with the sport itself and being able to handle the timing of the game and all that. You have to go to a state clinic at least 3 or 4 years. It takes you about 7 years to even qualify for a state tournament. It takes you that long.
Yeah, people have to understand that it's a process.
That's right.
To get to be able to do a state championship game or do any top level.
That's right.
5A game.
That's right. Well, every game is important, whether you're single A
No,
or 5A.
it's a great point.
And girls or boys, it's all part of the educational process. And I think it's important for officials to work at all levels, both genders. And we used to require that. I think that's still in existence. But the bottom line is that there's an awful lot involved with it, but it's an awful lot of fun too. There's a camaraderie that exists when you travel, and there's a great deal of satisfaction. I was talking to some of the old officials, they're younger than I am, officials at the state clinic when we were over there and receiving that award. You know, you'll have people come up in the store, whether it's Clovis or Fort Sumner or Hatch or Cruces, and they'll remember you. 70% of what we learn in our lives is serendipitous. And how an official conducts him or herself is going to have an impact on the behavior of that player, whether they know it or not. Most times you don't even know you're mirroring somebody else's behavior. And that's true. That's true educationally as well. That's why role modeling is so important. And they place a great deal of emphasis on it. Of course, attire. You're in a uniform, and you have no choice about it. You've got to look good, and every hair ought to be in place, or you're going to be history. And that's the bottom line, because we place such a great emphasis on that serendipitous part of it and role modeling.
Well, Dan, we're going to come back and talk more about officiating and talk more about Dan Salzwedel.
All right.
The New Mexico High School Coaches Association, established in 1941, is an organization of New Mexico's best and most professional interscholastic coaches. Coaches across work daily to help our student athletes excel in the classroom, on the field of play, and in our communities. Students that participate in interscholastic activities attain higher grades, higher graduation rates, and higher wages. Responsible for the North-South All-Star Games, statewide coaches award program, and providing multiple professional development opportunities for New Mexico's coaches. Be a great coach by coaching beyond the game.
The Albuquerque Dragway is a proud sponsor of Proview Networks. Visit abqdragway.com for directions and a full event schedule.
Coming back.
Hey, welcome back to the Steve Davis Show. We got Dan Salzwedel. Great afternoon. This is something we're doing not in the morning, we're doing it in the afternoon. But you've been on the show before, and I said I'm going to have you back on, and you caught me off guard because you're the 2019 New Mexico Officials Association's Hall of Fame. I mean, has that sunk in yet?
Well, that's somewhat. I'm just extremely honored and humbled by the experience, and I love it a whole lot. Of course, I probably will bleed red, white, and blue, and NMAA and NMOA when they put me under. So when they put that embalming fluid in, I'm sure they're going to be able to pull some blood out of there. The bottom line is, I'm just very honored. It's something I probably covet more than anything else, just because it meant so much instructionally and educationally to the total educational process in our state.
And I was so honored when, I had Tom talk to you, and I called you to see if you would want to come on, and, because you are very humbling, and but it's just people need to really know all the great things that you've done in your life, and you caught me off guard on that one, so I had to come and find out about it. 'Cause I've had you on my show. I thought I knew I had, but this one here was something that I missed in your life.
Well, you know, years ago, I just kind of grew up that way, as you know, all the roles. I just loved being around it, actually. I was a neutral observer for the Big Ten, even when I was coaching at that level. So I had good exposure to officials at a very high level very early, and I've just been very fortunate in my life. Very supportive family, and you know, nobody does any of these things by themselves. You have to have a lot of help.
Well, you have great support from your wife too. I mean, I mean, she's like a. Well, it's like I you know, I'm gonna have 2 or 3 conversations with her probably in my lifetime, but those were very, very, very enforcing and very great memories of mine.
Well, enforcing would be a good way to describe it. It's more like demanding. She don't like second best.
And I always forget. I can never forget. Really, when first time I met her was at the Gildan, New Mexico bowl and for luncheon, and I got the honor you got to sit with my mom and myself.
Yes,
and Tom, and what a great, you know. Sometimes, you know, in your lifetime, the best is saved for last, and I'm glad that I've got to meet your wife.
Well, she is too. She's honored as well to be a part of that.
Well, you know, we talk about, it seemed like we were talking past tense. What are we doing right now? I know that, you know, everybody thinks maybe that you're retired, but you're always active doing something.
Well, I serve on a couple of boards right now that hopefully trying to contribute. I presently am the chairman of the State Lottery Board. Of course, they generate money for the State Scholarship Fund. For all students, and that's important to me. I got that appointment from the governor's office 6 years ago now, almost 7. And I also serve as on the New Mexico Student Loan Board, which does loans, collects loans, and so on and so forth for students across the state, student loans from all the universities. And we're involved in our church. We run a little youth basketball league out there, and I need you as an official, by the way.
Well, I'm officially unofficial.
Well, I'm going to take that as a commitment that you're going to volunteer.
Volunteer. I thought you might ask me as a coach. I might be able. You know,
I could do that too.
I could probably do a little bit more positive reinforcement for the kids than having to talk to your board of directors of why you let me referee. So
no, in that league we do both. You officiate and you coach.
Oh, I'm sure it's fun. No, I actually have been doing a little coaching, so it's it's addicting. It never gets out of your system.
No, it sure doesn't. It sure doesn't. And I've gotten better over the years in the stands too. I really got to be a pretty good coach. A lot better than I really was.
Some highlights of, we got just a little bit, about a minute left here, and again, I know we were 2019 NMOA Hall of Fame inductee. I mean, how special is that?
Oh, it's very special. I wouldn't trade it for anything, frankly, in terms of those awards, secular awards that you get during, and it's a validation. And everybody likes to get recognized and validated for what you've done or hopefully tried to contribute in one way or another. But I can't emphasize enough, we had an awful lot of good people that were a big part of that, and I happened to be at the wheel. And that's an important thing to always remember and understand. I had a lot of great experiences officiating. I love the training part. I used to love doing the district clinics. I probably missed that more than anything else around the state. I love the human touch to be able to guide. I watched officials before we brought them into state, football, basketball, volleyball, wrestling. We'd watch them all before we'd ever allow them in.
Well, Dan, hey, thanks for coming on the Steve Davis Show, and we'll have you on again.
I sure hope so. Thank you very much. It's in my honor, believe me.